Welcome back to Dr. Scott's Maths Made Simple, Numbers and Indices. Let's keep it nice and simple and quick. If I said to you, remember 3 squared equals 3 times 3, which equals 9. So if we want to go back the other way, what is the square root of 9? The square root of 9, that's the symbol we use to say the square root. What number multiplied by itself gives 9? That equals 9 to the 1/2. That's how you write square root in indices. And the square root of 9 equals the square root of 9, which equals 3. So we've just sort of gone round in circles there. So, if we said the square root of 16 equals 16 to 1/2, which equals 4, because this is a symbol for because, an upside down triangle, because 4 times 4 equals 16. So 16 is a square number. 9 is a square number. 4 4s are 16, 3 3s are 9. 4 is a square number. 2 2s are 4. 1 is a square number, because 1 times 1 equals 1. If I did this, you'd see there are 2 eggs there. They're laid by mammals. The only 2 mammals in the world that lay eggs are the platypus and the echidna. I have no idea what that's got to do with maths, but they're the 2 mammals in the world that lay eggs. They both live in Australia, strangely enough. Let's be sensible. Okay, so if I said to you, what about 4 cubed? Well, that equals 4 times 4 times 4, which equals 64. You agree? And what if I said, what about 4 to the 3 on 2? Now, that's starting to look a bit tricky, isn't it? But it's actually not that tricky, because 4 to the 3 on 2 equals the square root of 4 cubed. The number on the bottom goes outside, so it's the square root of, that's where that comes from, 4 cubed. The 3 is on the top, so that's where that one goes. So remember we said 4 times 4 times 4 equals 64. So that equals the square root of 64. And you probably know the square root of 64. What number multiplied by itself equals 64? It's 8. So that's the answer. So 4 to the 3 on 2 equals 8. It looks hard, but it's not really. You just got to remember the bottom number goes on the outside of the indice bracket, and the 3 goes above the number. So doing it another way, what about 8 to the 2/3? Anyone think what that equals? Remember, the 3 is on the outside of the indice symbol, and the 2, it's 8, it's above the 8, it's 8 squared. So that equals the cube root, so the 3 goes there, the 3 on the bottom goes outside, of 8 squared. So 8 to the 2/3 power is the cube root of 8 squared, which equals the cube root of 64. can you think of a number that multiplied by itself 3 times gives 64? Well, I'd say it's 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 equals 64. So eight to the 2/3 equals 4. It looks very complicated, but when you boil it down to what it breaks down to and make it simpler, it's easier. Now, a couple of special ones, I suppose. As I mentioned before, square root of 1 equals 1. 1 times 1 is 1. But there's another square root of 1. Or 1 or negative 1. That is, negative 1 is also the square root of 1, because negative 1 times negative 1 equals 1. When you have two negative numbers multiplying by each other or dividing, you'll end up with a positive number. So minus 1 times minus 1 equals 1, or positive 1. Then we have, I suppose we go to the square root of 0. I'm not really sure about that. I suppose it's 0, because 0 times 0 equals 0. We'll just leave it like that. Sorry, couldn't help it. Now we have one final thing which is very bizarre. What's the square root of negative 1? So you know that if you multiply two negative numbers together, say negative 4 times negative 7, you always end up with a positive number. That equals plus 28. So a negative by a negative is a positive. So you can't multiply two negative numbers to get a negative number. So in a bizarre branch of mathematics, they say, they being the mathematicians, let the square root of negative 1 equal I, where I squared equals negative 1. So the whole branch of mathematics is based on I squared equals negative 1, or I is the square root of negative 1. Normal reasoning and common sense tells you this is impossible. You can't have the square root of a negative number. And yet that is what the whole of a branch of mathematics is based on, that I squared equals negative 1. But they never tell you what I is. I think it's because they don't know. Well, that'll do for tonight. We've just done some very basic things again. I hope it's helped you a bit. And if you wish to subscribe or like or both, that'd be great. Thank you.